this. He says, I don't understand. What do you mean it's fantastic? He said, if you really understand how the website works, it's designed to hide everything from you. It captures a great deal of information about you, but it hides a bunch of stuff. Like, it's very difficult to look, as you're doing, to look at plans, to find out what your deductible is going to be. He says he believes it was designed that way on purpose to make it more difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
So I'm not a computer expert. I know how to turn them on and I know how to move my mouse, but beyond that, that's beyond my area of expertise.
I can tell you as somebody that people call a computer expert that person is exactly correct. That is what it does. It obfuscates and it doesn't let you into the portal. It's like one of those websites. I'm sure that you've been to this type of website before. You get to the website and it's filled with double talk and gobbledygook language. And you never find out what their product is. You can't tell how to buy the product, but they want you to contact them with all of your information before they'll tell you about the product. And it's the same thing. And that's the federal government that's doing this. And it makes no sense until you consider that the end result is to scare people.
Right.
That's what it's designed to do, to destroy the economy. The question is, the next question I have for you is, why are they trying to destroy the economy?
Trying to destroy the economy because, very simply, and I believe this, that the influence of the Muslim faith, especially the radical Muslims, is, if we go back to what we talked about, Osama bin Laden didn't want to bring down the buildings per se. He wanted to shut down the American capital markets. If we take the money away from America, we have more and more of the resources of America being diverted to things that do not make wealth for America. In fact, destroy wealth. That's exactly what the Muslims want to try and do. Because once you take away America's money, what's left? Nothing.
Nothing.
And that's what they're trying to do. That's their goal, is to get, as I said to you, the head of the Taliban said in his speech on the 12th, what we need to do is we need America to bleed. We needed to spend more and more of its resources on security, less and less on its economy. We need lone wolf attacks, and we also need to have a greater single event greater than the World Trade Center. So they haven't given up. And in many cases, Obama, in the way he's trying to govern, and the process is doing a lot of the Muslims' work for them.
I agree.
You take away America's wealth, you take away its power. You take away its power, then Muslims are the largest single population in the world.
That is true. And what we're looking at right now on the video side of the broadcast is an article that is from October 13th, 2011. And a good friend of mine, investigative reporter down in Mexico, he does excellent work. He was on for, I think, 3.5 hours that night. We were discussing this. What we believe to be the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated almost all of our government agencies, including the Pentagon. We saw that with the shooting that was called workplace violence, where the psychiatrist yelled Allahu Akbar and started shooting up troops that were coming back from Afghanistan.
Right.
So we're seeing it. The guy's definitely a Muslim, and even though they call it workplace violence, I believe that's another clue along our path of what you've been talking about. Because they call it workplace violence. They don't call it for what it is, a terrorist attack by a Muslim.
Exactly.
My question for you is, given your experience, and your experience shows in your book, what sort of events can we look forward to in the near term, do you think? What do you think they're planning?
Well, I do think that they're planning. I think part of what's going on here is that the Iranian government is continuing its development on nuclear weapons, And I believe that there's a very good possibility that before our president is finished his second term, we're going to find that Iran has nuclear capability for weapons. Now, I know that a lot of people say they don't have enough plutonium and all that stuff. I'm just saying, or enriched uranium. I'm saying they are working 24/7 to be able to build some kind of a nuclear device. Whether they use it or not, I'm not sure, but they could threaten to use it. And the question then becomes, will the rest of the world, who has become so politically correct, will it go after the sources of those weapons and destroy them, or will they allow them to become the new dictators in the Middle East? I think that the situation as it relates to Obamacare will be a setback for the subtleties of takeover, which may cause a rise in actual attacks because that particular attack failed. So we may see more physical attacks than we're seeing today because of the failure of Obamacare. And I think there was this discussion today whether 2/3 majority of the House and Senate, they could gather 2/3 of the majority of the House and Senate to override a presidential veto to get rid of Obamacare. The longer this goes, the more people that are in pain, the more pressure will be on the Democrats to support a move to get rid of Obamacare. That will be a great, great disappointment to them because it means that we're going to reverse a trend that was really going to be working in their favor. If I were sitting in an Al-Qaeda operative center somewhere, I would be very concerned that right now the greatest risk to them is that when Mr. Obama leaves office, he's replaced by a Ronald Reagan-type conservative who changes the whole mix. That would be a great fear, as I see, and that they would want to step up their physical attacks.
Sadly, that is exactly what I was thinking.
Scary, huh?
I would also add the caveat that everybody calls a conspiracy. But I will remind everybody that we conspiracy theorists were certainly right about the NSA spying on everybody and gathering every bit of information on us. We were also right about what Obamacare was going to do, along with many other things. My latest conspiracy is if he is out of office at the end of his term. I follow the thought, and I'm trying to be very careful here, so it sounds like I don't have my thoughts together, but I do. I follow the thought that if we have these physical attacks, like Dan's talking about, and a national emergency is declared, let's say sometime around October of 2016, I could see the possibility that the presidential elections could be pushed back for a certain amount of time because we just don't have any way to count the votes, and it would be unfair to have the election now.
Well, I'll understand what you're saying. I'm going to tell you, where do you read Book 3? Because that scenario is addressed in Book 3. So you're going to have to wait 6 months, but it's in there.
Along those lines, I want to ask you some questions. And you can take as long as you want to answer them. We've got 45 minutes left.
I don't have 45 minutes left, but I'll do the best I can.
Okay, well, say 15 minutes. We got 15 minutes left. How's that sound?
Okay, good.
How would, do you believe, knowing what you know and the books you've written, how would a terrorism attack start, and would there be a way for we civilians to recognize, let's say, the clues beforehand and during a terrorist attack?
Well, in the traditional al-Qaeda sense, no. I think that with the security that we've put in place in airports, the ability to steal airplanes full of fuel and jump them into buildings. Again, if you go back and read Book 1, you'll see that the analysis was that, well, it made a great photographic moment. It did shut down the markets for a period of time. It didn't shut down the markets for an extended period of time, years. And so that I think that they've got to be plotting attacks that will have such a significant impact that it will change us for many decades. And so I think it becomes a matter of, as I've illustrated in Book 1, there are 4 scenarios in Book 1, which you're not quite to yet, but we'll get to shortly. And interesting, I have people tell me when I do public speaking and they've read the book, he says, are you not, with your 4 scenarios in Book 1, aren't you giving aid and comfort to the enemy? And I said, no, I don't believe so. Instead of putting that my intention, what I'm trying to say is to help you as a reader understand where I believe we may be vulnerable as a country and we're not paying attention to it. And these 4 scenarios are only 4 out of which are probably many that could have very significant longer-term impact on our economy and on our nation. I did an interview with a radio station in Washington, D.C., and the gentleman who was interviewing me said that 2 years ago, it sounds crazy to say this, but I have every reason to believe what he was telling me was correct. He said several years ago the Department of Defense was asking people like you, meaning me, thrill writers, to create a series of scenarios of how they think terrorists are likely to attack the United States. And I said, well, if that RFP ever comes out again, let me know, because I can submit some ideas. I don't think that we're going to be. You can't see the ball coming, like a pitcher throwing to a batter. The batter can see the ball, and he may swing and hit it a third of the time if he's a really good hitter, miss it 7 times out of 10. But the reality is, he can see it, but he can't stop it. I don't think that, excuse me, I don't think we're in a situation where we're going to be able to anticipate where the attack's going to come. I know that our technology and our surveillance continues, but in reality, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know and you don't know about what's going on. But I do believe that they are continuing to plan and trying to figure out how can they reach their ultimate goal. Because remember, these people are goal-driven, and how long it's going to take them is irrelevant to them, and what resources they're going to have to expend is irrelevant to them. I mean, we have a nation of people who fundamentally don't understand how a mother could strap dynamite on the back of her child and send that child into a restaurant to kill people. We can't understand that. It's not in our psyche. It's not in our upbringing. It's not in our moral base. But that's how serious these people are about achieving their goal, domination of the world by Islam. And so we don't have that. In fact, we have a long history of going the other way. When we finally get into a fight, it's to protect our freedom and make sure that people are free and independent. They have a goal. And remember, they've been doing this a long time, longer than we are as a nation. And now that there are more of them and they continue to grow and multiply, there are more and more people who understand this philosophy and are using this philosophy. And as we educate the people, as I've suggested in the book, as we educate the people who are going to attack us, we have to seriously think about that too. Are we going to continue to educate the world and give them all the engineering science, computer science, nuclear science, Are we going to give them all of the tools necessary to attack us out of our own country? That's a big question, and we could do a whole